going to start talking about World Cup viewership because all of the numbers have now rolled in. They're impressive, especially relative to the final, but there have also been some strategic aspects of this that we've kind of dug into a little further as well, relative to when to play these games and how it might impact American sports as well. And that is where we'll start today. First of all, just the big picture viewership number for the World Cup final. Astronomical. 66 million people between Fox and Telemundo combined. 66.4 the official tally. You see some of the other very well-attended, well-viewed games matches that we saw over the course of the World Cup.
Unfortunately for the U.S. men's national team, number 2. But
hey,
still,
you know what?
Huge number.
It's a huge number. It is exposure for that team.
Yeah.
Yes, that's massive, and that's not a bad thing.
Imagine if they had made the semifinals. Or
just ask Jerry Jones. The eyeballs are not a bad thing. They would have loved to have performed better in that match, but there is inherent growth that comes with that number. But that 66.4 million number, that is the largest viewership for any show, period, other than a Super Bowl, going back to the 1994 Winter Olympics. And I didn't think about this in the moment, but you were mentioning this earlier today before we came on the air. Part of the reason why everybody tuned in for that was because of Tanya Harding. And,
there's a little bit of
a reason behind it.
There was some controversy there. Yeah. Just a bit. This didn't need any controversy. This was just.
Although there was
this
plenty
had
of
the
it.
world's interest. This had the country's interest, and this is encouraging for the growth of the game because this was not the numbers that we saw for the World Cup 4 years ago. And at the end of the day, the product was the same, but the entanglement with all of these cultures across the country, experiencing cultures from across the world, I think brought a lot more people under the tent and made people go, you know what, I'm going to check this thing out at least.
The product might be the same, but it also determines, during the group stage and during the knockout stage, they keep it within the time zones on which they're playing. Yeah. There are certain elements with which they want to lean more toward, bigger European matches, for instance, want to be in the European primetime slot.
Yeah.
Which is why, to some degree, that FIFA has always kind of kept the final in that 2 to 3 p.m. window, our time and central time location. Mm-hmm. So it's like 7 or 8 o'clock over in
Europe.
Right. Because that's their prime viewing audience.
Yeah.
But also, with that being said,
that did tweak me a little bit.
Yes.
Not with the final. Not with the final, not with the third place match. They're on the weekends. Whatever. We've got plenty of American sports that happen on the weekends that are played at 1, 3, 5 in the afternoon, whatever. 2 o'clock in the afternoon was both fine. You brought the World Cup to America. Part of the reason to bring the World Cup to America was to grow the game more here. You already have the world's attention.
But when they brought it to Qatar, were they trying to grow it in Qatar too? Or was it just... And it wasn't just in America. It was Mexico and Canada that were also hosts here. So it was...
Yeah.
They have the rest of the world.
Yeah.
They don't need to grow it in Qatar.
Right.
They don't need to grow it in England. They don't need to grow it in Argentina. They already have all of those places. You are trying to increase your foothold in America.
Okay.
That's part of the mission, right, of having the World Cup here.
Sure.
Yeah.
So why not once have your games played in prime time here so that you could perhaps enhance that audience?
They did, though. Mexico and United States, whenever it was a...
Are you talking about the knockout rounds or in the...
Yeah.
I'm talking about the semifinals. I'm
Like
talking
on
about
the
two
standalone on
semifinals
Tuesday, Wednesday.
being on a Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock when the vast majority of America who you're trying to grab with this thing is at work and
But I think what we're discussing
can't
is
watch.
it's kind of similar to what Thierry Henry said. There's levels to this. Like, the population of the United States is fractional compared to Europe. And obviously the people that care about it. I get you want to try and grow this audience, but let's say American football is starting to take off in Japan. Is there any way that they're going to take a standalone, let's say a standalone wild card game, and shift it to a prime time Japan slot?
Which would make it what here?
I mean, we do move a lot of our international games to 9 in the morning or what. They do shift. Now it's not they haven't done a playoff game in that space yet. I imagine that's probably coming at some point. But the Australia game, I don't know what time of the day in Australia it's going to be played. It's going to be kind of random here, though.
Right.
They do kind of time shift.
Right, but that's also like the
to where it
logistics
is.
of it. That's the logistics of it. And also, the time difference isn't enough that like they're playing it at, 9 a.m. our time. It's still in the afternoon. It's not. In other words, we don't have to change our circadian rhythm to get up and absorb this thing, right?
Granted.
I just looked it up. The Rams versus Niners game is going to be at 10:30 in the morning local, so that it's 7:30 here.
Interesting.
7:30 p.m.
Yeah.
Pokes a whole lot of holes in that theory, at least relative to that one game. We've seen it different with a lot of the other
even
games
where
in
Wembley's
Europe,
concerned, like they've created a habit of midday over there, early morning here, because it's a way to start the day with football. Because they've got the rest of the slate already figured out. They've ironed out noon through basically 10 o'clock that your day will be consumed by football. So the only place to put it, in a place where it will be absorbed in a better spot, and to also just expand the day in general, is in that morning slot. So, but no, like that's the point to me. It's like your viewership as a soccer fan goes to where all of the Premier League teams play. I'm not just saying Premier League, but like Serie A, everyone.
And they're all in the same spot.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're not going to forego that viewership just for the perspective of, well, we just assume that they're all going to tune in. I realize you can take that for granted, but like the population of the United States compared to the people that care about it out there.
Again, I'm not suggesting that they should change it going forward. I just thought this one time it would have made some sense if you're trying to increase your foothold to cater to the host nations and have it in a time frame where it is prime time here. I thought that would have been smart. But you have also seen some stuff relative to Major League Baseball as well as the NHL.
Well, we're about to run into it.
Dabble into exactly. I mean, baseball, they do this. They have getaway day games. Like there are reasons.
Right.
So that's been kind of a thing. For hockey to do this feels a little newer and more, not radical, but at least a bigger change.
So here's the article that caught my attention. It was on Sports Illustrated. I want to get the byline correct. It was Jimmy Traina who posted this, and kind of hit my timeline. He essentially broke this whole thing down. Here's what struck him specifically. The two semifinal games both started at 2 p.m. or 2 p.m. our time, so 3 p.m. Eastern.
Talking about the World Cup.
Yes, but they drew 23 and 28 million viewers, which isn't nothing. They were pretty close to that top 5 ranking. Everyone in the sports world has been, and this is a quote here, everyone in the sports world has been so trained to believe that big games must be played in prime time to draw maximum viewership. The World Cup showed that there's an audience for standalone weekday afternoon games. Times have changed. Everyone has a device where they can stream games even if they're at work. In addition, ever since the COVID-19 pandemic, tons of people work remotely these days, so there's more access to just having a TV on in the background. All sports should use the World Cup as inspiration to schedule more weekday afternoon games. And he's not comparing, he physically says, like it's not like MLB and NHL will rise to the level of a World Cup
I'm glad
final.
that part was.
So,
I would have been surprised if because Trainer does a great job in this space. So it makes sense that he would have thought through that piece of it because that's a huge difference. But can we pull back up the viewership VO? Where did the semifinals actually land?
It was 23 and 28 too. So Zeke, it should be VO1 here. Real quick though, when he was talking about this,
more
that was
like
their
40
combined
or 50,
numbers.
Though, if the final was 66, could the semifinals have been somewhere on this? Like they're not even on this list.
But again,
put them in
23
prime
and
time,
28, you're still probably talking about top 10 in terms of interest level.
Right, but shouldn't your semifinals be 2 and 3?
I mean, sure, maybe, but when you're talking about...
Or at least 3 and 5. Like, I get the USA quotient of that is going to... Fine, that makes sense.
And that's the thing.
But your semifinals should be 3 and 5.
Sure, but the other side of it is average viewership across Fox and Telemundo. We're not talking about the other entities that are broadcasting the World Cup elsewhere.
Right.
So we're not including that. Like, this is where we get into Olympic talk. We're talking about viewership because the Olympic viewership is ridiculous. You're talking billions upon billions of views across all different types of platforms. So just because Fox, these are numbers from Fox, this is the domestic property. And I understand you're kind of thinking it from a domestic lens.
Yeah.
But I'm sure these games did a significant number elsewhere.
Of course,
you know what I mean.
Did.
So
but they were going to anyway.
Right.
That's kind of my point. Is you were going to have success with, of course, people in England and Scotland and Wales and France and Spain. Like,
correct.
Of course, they're gonna watch. This is what they do.
Right.
The common. I just looked it up. The common thread that these all have is that aside from the final, or was the final? It was on a Sunday. So
Sunday.
It was. Yeah. It was either when all 5 of these either were on a weekend or if they were on a weekday, they were at nighttime.
Right, because the Mexico England
7
was
p.m. or later.
Mexico England also got the benefit of a rain delay, so there was more time for people to join in.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And listen, that one deserves to be on the list too. Like 2, 3, and 4 make a whole ton of sense. So if the semis were 5 and 6, okay.
Would they have gotten a bigger number, you think?
But I'm saying like they could have been number, like if the semifinals were number 5 and number 6.
Yeah.
But
fine.
But that's kind of what I'm saying from a World Cup perspective. Sure, Fox and Telemundo are the American hosts. They have other responsibilities as far as broadcast internationally as well.
Yeah.
And as much as we want to grow it here, those folks are going to want those games, which are most likely going to feature their teams in primetime for them. So
And
you're
get
catering
that
to
every other World Cup. All I'm saying is this one time it would have made some sense for them to
There is
to
the piece
do
of
a
it
different
too
way.
that like these are the broadcasters for us.
Yeah.
BBC's
Right.
broadcasting.
That's what I'm saying.
So I mean, and we don't know what their numbers are.
No.
Which that could be.
Yeah,
even
England, Argentina could be
astronomical.
like the, I don't know, 100 million people. Or everyone in Europe literally tuned into it.
Yeah.
But to take the NHL side of it and continue that thread here real quick, this is from the article still. The NHL will actually experiment with Monday afternoon games this season. The league's goal is to cater to European audiences rather than capitalize on changes in viewership behavior at home, but it can have that tangential effect as well.
Yeah.
So I suppose the question is, as sports are looking for avenues to grow, the logical concept is let's not take everyone that we have and throw it in the 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. slot as far as a start time. Where else can we find a latch, like something to grab onto?
So an American sport that has a foothold in America is trying to grow its product somewhere overseas, and they're catering to that time frame.
Well, it's already
exactly
hockey's
what
already
I'm
more of a
saying.
European audience anyway, so that is part of it.
But that's what I'm saying. So the NHL is doing exactly what I'm saying the World Cup should have done.
Yes and no. They're taking a Monday standalone game during a regular season. You're saying take semifinal games, which are critical important,
Of course they are.
and moving them outside of their main viewing area. That's the issue.
Okay.
Like that's where it's discrepancy. They're
Yeah.
they're taking a shot in the dark on something. They don't know if it's going to work
see
or
if it
not.
works.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll see.